Hey, welcome back, everybody, and Happy New Year. So, this is going to be the watch list for Monday, January 6th, which will be the very first full week of the 2025 calendar year. So, I think you'll start to see volume come back to normalcy and hopefully a little bit more rigor within the market regarding some consistency. So, as the saying goes, kind of however January finishes, it's a precursor for what we can expect for the majority of the remainder of the year. So let's take a look at the news data. So on Monday, not a whole lot is going on. We have some final PMI numbers as well as factory orders. Nothing to be concerned around there. Tuesday, we got a Fed President, Tom Barkin, speaking. Again, he's not going to say anything that is going to spook or surprise the market. So again, and that's before the market opens. So I think we're good. A couple things to watch, though, is this ISM services number and the job opening. So I think there's going to be a lot of eyes on the overall unemployment. And then we're going to get some ADP employment numbers on Wednesday. We're also going to get the Fed minutes from the December FOMC meeting. So that could introduce a little bit of volatility into the market because if you recall, off of the last FOMC decision and the overall rate cut, the market tanked significantly. So everybody's going to be looking for, is there something that was talked about that wasn't said in the news conference? We're also going to have consumer credit. Then on Thursday and Friday, really this is where the unemployment comes in. Jobless claims, we're going to have some wholesale inventory. So are inventories building or are they being managed status quo? And then on Friday, again, we have our employment report, unemployment rate, hourly wages year over year, and then another important one, right, which is consumer sentiment. How is the consumer feeling with regard to overall inflation? So I'm going to talk a little bit about something different. So in the past, I've talked about my levels. How do I set my levels? My yellow lines are always on the daily 4-hour and 1 hour. And then my blue line, for example, would be an interim level. Interim because I'm between levels. And so I'm not waiting for the market to come all the way up to here to take calls, but I'm also not waiting for it to come all the way down here and break lower to take puts, right? So I have to decide, what do I want to do in the interim? So in the interim, I'm typically using a 1 hour or it could be a 15-minute to say, what has the market been doing in between the zones? So you can kind of see right here, and I'll just use a yellow box just so you can kind of see what I'm talking about. But you'll kind of see that when we get in this yellow zone here, the market is doing one of two things. For the most part, it's been selling off, right? So we got up here, we sold off. We got up here, we sold off. We got up here, we're holding. Now I'm going to want to see, is it going to break out of this yellow box to the upside, or are we going to go back to the downside? So you have to remember that the market looks for areas of interest. Now, one of the other things that there was a lot of discussion around on Friday in the Discord was supply and demand, and how do you use supply and demand? And, if I'm just using price levels, isn't that good enough? The answer to that is no. It's not just good enough to be using price levels. So price levels tell you what happened in the past, but supply and demand will reaffirm as to what is happening in the present. So for example, what would I be looking for in SPY on Monday? Well, I would love to see it hold down here at this 591.51 level where there are buyers. And I can see that the software is showing that demand is forming. Let me just zoom in on that right here. Demand forming on a 45-minute, demand is forming on a 3-hour. That means that buyers are stepping in and placing more orders than what has historically been happening. So, do I want to be taking puts right here? No. Why would I want to be taking puts where I know there are buyers? I don't. I want to be taking puts up here where I know there are sellers. But right now, my bias would be long the market. Right? Now, do I just automatically want to jump in calls on the open? No, because what the market can do is it can push up and then come back down and grab some liquidity, i.e. buyers, before it heads up here and then potentially rejects lower, or we have enough market strength, and then we are going to eat up all of these sellers going to my next price level. Okay? So you have to think about the market with liquidity between where are the sellers and where are the buyers. And just because there's buyers doesn't mean it has to bounce. Just because where there's sellers doesn't mean it has to reject. But you have to pause and think about the fact of, do I really want to be taking puts? Now, when would I take puts? I would be willing to take puts, again, when we have a very low level of overall supply and demand. 30 minutes is very low. 45 minutes is very low. 3 hours, 4 hours, 1 day, weekly, monthly, those are very strong zones. The higher the zone, the greater the strength. So the lower the zone, the weaker it is. So if on Monday morning, for example, we start to push into this and it starts to dissipate and disappear and there is continued weakness, we are probably going back down to this level, right? So what I am using this is a proxy, or if we're bowling, kind of like bumper bowling, as to where are the alleys that I could potentially be bouncing off of those inflatable tubes, okay? But right now, I would have to be bias the market positive until I get up here to some sellers, and then I have to make a decision. So now, again, it doesn't mean that these buyers down here are going to remain. The market could sell heavy based upon a news event, eat them all up, and then where are the next level of buyers? Down here at my next price level, right? All the way down here. So now, if the market breaks through these and heads lower, I would have to make the assumption, depending upon weakness and price action, that we will come down here, we will test this level, will this hold to go higher, or will it break and go lower to come find liquidity and find us some more buyers? So let's look at the same thing with QQQ. Do the identical setup. This one, okay? So my sellers are up here, my buyers are down here. This is now where I am totally relying on my price levels to either act as a form of support or resistance. So I can see here that in the past, again, sellers, buyers, this is an interim level, they rejected it and pushed it down. Up here, they rejected it and pushed it down. So if I'm going to go long the market and buy calls, I want to see us come above my level, retest my level. Let's go find some sellers. My sellers are all the way up here at my next level. Okay, let's take a look at some individual names. Let's look at Amazon. We'll do it with this one real quick if we could. Again, I'm always starting with price levels. I am never starting with supply and demand. So I have price levels because it tells me historically, has the market bounced? Has the market rejected? So you can see here on Amazon at 225, all the way back here, it rejected, then it bounced, then it rejected. Then we got into this messy middle where it bounced, it rejected, it rejected, it rejected. So I want to watch 225. Now, if I'm going to watch 225, my next price level is up here at 230 or down here at 215. I don't automatically just want to rip calls because what the market could do is it could push up to this price level and go here. The other thing that Amazon could do too is it could break above my price level, retest it, and go here, right? We're looking for liquidity. We are looking for where are their sellers, where are their buyers. So how do I use the supply and demand? Well, I use it again as a guideline. Now this one's a little bit more challenging, right? Because we have buyers and sellers. This is called a balanced market. They're on top of one another. The buyers and sellers are agreeing on price. Now, I will tell you that Amazon will do one of two things. If we can eat through these sellers on the 45-minute time frame, then we are most likely definitely going to 225. Then the market will have to make a decision. If we break above 225, I'd like to see us retest it and then eat through the 30-minute sellers. Now, mind you, when the market is open and we are pushing into these zones, it could reject clearly at any point in time within the zone, right? But once you get about halfway past the zone, you will then start to see momentum pick up because, again, We know that these sell orders are not going to be strong enough to slow the stock down. This red box will literally disappear before your eyes. It will just be gone, off the charts, no longer exists. But right now, on Monday morning, I'm not going to rip calls, and I'm definitely not taking puts. I mean, so even if there's some weakness in the market, this is not one that I would be interested in automatically going into puts on. Why? Because I have all of these buyers right here. Let's take a look at Apple, see what it looks like. Apple has had relative weakness. Now you're going to note the exact same thing on Apple. And this would have been, again, these were my levels from prior weeks. This would have been a great short. Short below 253. Why? Because there were no buyers until I got all the way down here at 242. Where did the market go? Through my next price level of 246. We stopped. Again, we are between price levels, 246, 237. Why did we stop? Because we had a point of consolidation here, which you could call this, again, an interim level. Let's just go ahead and drop it on there, make it blue. Okay, let's turn off the supply and demand indicator. So we're not even looking at this anymore. You'll see how they bounced it, bounced, bounce, bounce, bounce. We come down, they bounce it, they bounce it. We are still at this interim level. So what do I do on Monday with Apple? You do nothing, right? This is balance. This is why it's just chopping here. So we have people who want to buy Apple, but we have a lot of people who want to sell Apple. So we don't want to go long into Apple unless we can eat through these sellers, get above this 45-minute time frame, and literally get above 246, come down, let's go find us some more sellers, okay? Now, do I want to get in puts? No, I don't want to get in puts until you can see this break below 242.20 all the way down to 241. So I need to get through all of these buyers, and then this 30-minute zone is going to be a weak one. And if we have weakness, I definitely think that we're going to come down here to 237, retest, and then we're going to get stopped dead in our tracks right here at 235. Because again, look how heavy all of these zones are with people who want to buy Apple. Okay, so let's take a look at one more. Let's go ahead and take a look at Tesla. So again, I have my levels. Do I want to rip calls? No, because I'm already sellers, 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 sellers. So does that mean I want to get in puts? Not necessarily. This is why what I would love to see is for a pullback again, and this is what I talked about a week ago, right? A week ago I said, if we break below to the downside, we're going back down to 400. Where do we go? We went way below 400 down to 374 where there were prior buyers. But let's just go ahead and turn this off. So you'll see the zones, they're all here, they're all relative. We are in between zones here. Again, you could do the exact same thing. You could say, I want to have an interim zone where we actually rejected over here, and then we used it as support, and then the same thing happened here. So 374 is a good interim zone, and now we are again at a pivot where we had a high, a low, a lower high, a lower low. We are now starting to recapture that. Okay, so we're going to watch 412. What does supply and demand tell us? Well, we're kind of again at a bypass. We have all these sellers right here. So until we can start to eat through these sellers, then I think we're going to go up to the next level of where the sellers are. And I would use my next pivot high of 426.56, right? You could see, again, so high, low. We almost had an equidistant right here. So this one would be, really interesting to watch and see how does Tesla act right here. Right around 425, it kind of gets stopped in its tracks, right? Resistance, 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 resistance. But if we can clear right here, 417 with some momentum, you have room all the way up to the next group of sellers. So if you're not using this, right, it's really hard to say, well, how do I know when it's going to reject between zones? You don't. Now, what you can do and what you would need to do is you would need to go draw all of these zones on whatever charts you want to trade. And you would have to draw them every single day. You start on the monthly, then you go to the weekly, draw your zone. Where did it sell off? Where did it buy? You would do that on the daily, the 4-hour, the 3-hour, the 2-hour, the 1-hour, 30-minute, 15-minute, 5-minute, 1 minute, and then finally, voila, you have all of the zones that the software is actually doing for you. Okay, I'm going to take a look at one more NVIDIA. NVIDIA, again, great price levels, right? And nothing other than buyers. So no way should anybody have been shorting this. So this is where supply and demand with price levels becomes super, super powerful. So I had my price level 144.49. If we can hold that with some buyers, where are we going? We are going higher. Where are the sellers on this? So they're going to be up top, and we're going to probably go to a 1 hour time frame and see what we can find here. You will note when I'm on a different time frame, you'll see that we're already here where the sellers are. So I do not want to short this on the open, and I don't want to go long on the open. So let's go to a 5-minute time frame. What I would want to see is if we're going to have relative strength and momentum in NVIDIA. Again, this is a balanced market. They're all agreeing on price. If for every buyer there's a seller, for every seller there's a buyer. So for this one, if you're going to go long, you want it to come back down into your zone to then go higher. Okay? Now, conversely, if for some reason we get momentum on Monday morning, I want to be shorting this at 145.65 to come lower. I do not want to be going in calls with all of these sellers up here. I don't even have any buyers until we get down here. Now, mind you, the market is an auction. So for every seller, there is a buyer, and for every buyer, there is a seller. But if you just look at this from the 30,000 foot level, it's so much easier to say, should I be going in calls? Should I be going in puts? Do I have a defined price level? You know me, I trade level to level. But I trade level to level with some added insights to say, well, I'm at my level. Do we have buyers? Do we have people that want to pick up the stock? Are we at our level, and do we have sellers that are going to slow me down to reverse the trend and go in the opposite direction? So hopefully that takes away some of the myth and the legend and debunk supply and demand along with price levels to be able to put it all together. I do want to look at one last one. I just thought of it. I want to look at CELH. I said this would be a great one to keep on your radar. So here's what we're going to do here is if we got below, I believe I said 26.90, I set an alert, go short. Yep, that was a great short. I now threw a fib level on it on the 1 day. So it's easier for me to clearly see pivot high to pivot low on a daily with fibs. What are we doing here? And so my high, my low, 28.80 is my reject level. Now, this has had some really good strength. So let's look at this on a 15-minute. We are right up against that 29.01 price. This is bullish. If this breaks above 29.01, I think we're going to 29.80. We break above 29.80, I think we're going to the 786, which is the 30.94. Let's throw on some supply and demand. You'll see that we are buyers. More buyers were stepping in. More buyers were stepping in. So the other question is, how do I know, should I stay in a trade, right? So individual stocks have weekly expirations. They're not daily. Well, this would be a great indicator that if you got in here or anywhere above the line, once we retested it, and you were in calls, you sit in calls. Why? Because there's no sellers until I get to this price level at 29.14. So again, want to see a break above, retest to move higher, but do note that we have sellers that kind of line up right with our fib. Are they going to be able to push it down very far? The answer is no. They can't push it down very far because look at all these buyers on the different time frames. 1 hour, 30 minute, 30 minute, 45 minute, 1 hour, 30 minute, 3 hour, 45 minute, 2 hour, 1 hour, 1 week. They're not getting it back down here to 26.90 unless there is a significant negative news event, which made me want to think of one more. Apologize, just off the top of my head, because we've been watching SoFi in the past, or I've been asked about it. You know, when would you want to buy this thing? So you could see that we have our fib levels. We rejected a fib. And let's see where we threw that on at. This was probably, wow, this is an older one. This is from this pivot high all the way to the low. So now what you're starting to see is this start to roll over. And what I'd be looking for on this one is, again, banks are going to start announcing earnings coming up in about another week. So if they can maintain this 1480, you'll note demand started to form. I think this is going to definitely start to head back higher. It had its drawdown, came to where were the buyers at. Again, this is your cue, guys. Once you're getting down here and they sell something off, or if you're in puts, you're staying in puts until you get to the green zone. Does it mean it's going to get there? No, but that ought to be your price target. So you start trimming along the way. Now we're buying. Your first sell would have been here, but we reclaimed a 50% fib, and the 618 is going to be all the way up here. So hopefully that helps, gives you a different perspective as to why you should be patient. And again, there's no need, if you don't have a strategy as of yet that you're abiding by, other than to just use this one. Buy calls here, buy puts here. Buy calls here, buy puts here. I mean, seriously, if there's no sellers, there's nothing to do. If there's no buyers, there's nothing to do. Whereas what most of you are doing is you're just trying to chase this messy middle, and that's what just leaves you chopped up. So it's okay. Just come to the market and watch. You don't have to take a trade. You don't have to profit every day. Wouldn't it be better to make 10 grand in one day than to make $500 a day for the entire week? That's my entire strategy this year. I'm going to take way less trades. Maybe take 2 trades a week. Maybe 3. I'm not focused on trading every single day. I don't need to, because when I'm making 10, 12, 15, 20,000 in a day, I don't even need to trade the rest of the month. And that's the mindset each of you should be in. Sit around, be patient, have some coffee, have a tea, just watch and just don't do anything. So hopefully that helps. Again, wishing each and every one of you a phenomenal 2025, and just know I am always here to help. So with that, also, if you're not in the Discord, get your butt in the Discord. I mean, you are missing out on not only some phenomenal content, some phenomenal signals, but you are missing out on a phenomenal community where everybody is helping one another to win. And if you're not in there, you're doing this the hard way. Again, use the tools, use supply and demand, use the Discord, use one another for resources. This isn't rocket science, but if you're going to go it alone, I'm going to tell you, it's pretty damn lonely, and it sure as hell can be boring. So that's why I enjoy doing it with each and every one of you. Again, Happy New Year. We'll all talk next weekend. Take care.